The NHL announced its first batch of All Stars. Did they get it right? And who might get in on the fan vote? Plus, we've got a full weekend of action to preview and more coming up on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everyone, and thanks for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner from Locked On Flyers. I'm here every Friday with Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders. You can subscribe or follow us for free over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. You'll get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Happy Friday, Gil.
Happy Friday, Rachel.
So we got the NHL All Star initial rosters announced last night, and we got this first batch, which is 32 players, one from each team, and it is a very interesting list, I think. And first off, I just want to say I'm sure it's a very complicated task, and there's lots of people involved with lots of voices and lots of opinions, and with the whole thing of having to get players from every team in there and having, a certain number of goaltenders as well. I'm sure it's very complicated. So that is my disclaimer. That being said, there's some really weird things going on.
Well, I'm glad you got the disclaimer out of the way.
Yeah. Well, you got to say such things.
Yes.
You never know what's going on behind the scenes there. But yeah, I thought there were some selections that were spot on and some that were like, I don't know. I would say just from a top level, I'm very excited that we will have two Hughes, but bummed that there are not two Kachucks on this list.
And the amazing thing about these initial selections as well is that you have a grand total of two defensemen among the 32 initial players picked.
Yikes, who's going to play D?
I mean, are they doing 3-on-3 again, or how are they doing this?
Yeah, I mean, it is the 4-team tournament option that we have seen with the 3-on-3, but yeah, I am not sure exactly what's going on with that side of things. There's also, several players on here that are currently injured, and so I'm not sure what's going on there. There's always some people that politely decline the invitation, and so the league names somebody else to replace them, and sometimes it's last minute and sometimes it's ahead of time, and so I'm not sure how that interacts with the fan vote that's going to happen, which we'll talk about as well.
Yeah, and it's always one of those things that very often you'll get a last minute substitution, or and fans can be disappointed if their favorite player from their favorite team pulls out of the event. But at the end of the day, the All-Star Game is supposed to be fun, and hopefully that's what we're going to have come February when this game actually gets played.
Yeah, speaking of fun, I think obviously number one on people's lists in terms of the fun is Connor Bedard, who was the obvious choice from Chicago to be selected here. But I think, he's going to, I believe, become the youngest All-Star player ever in the NHL All Star Game. And for him to be there at the same All Star Game as Connor McDavid, I think is going to be especially if we can get them on the same team somehow. I think that would be
Connor, right?
Yeah. So, aside from that, your point about there being no defensemen, I mean, the All-Star game is not about defense, but you still have to
No.
have somebody play the position.
Yeah,
That's
little details
for
like
sure.
that, you know.
Yeah. So as far as the injuries on this list, and some of these guys could be back, but I don't know if they're going to want to then jump into an All-Star game, with potential for getting hurt again so quickly after they return. But Jake Ottinger is currently injured. Boone Jenner is hurt. Kirill Kaprizov is hurt. So it's like this is going to change. This list will absolutely change.
No question about it. And it does every year. And it's just a question of finalizing it as soon as possible and providing the fans with a lot of really good entertainment by having some excellent, skilled players who are really going to be in the spirit of the event once it takes place.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, looking at this list again, like refer to the disclaimer that we mentioned earlier in the show, but there's definitely some head scratchers here in terms of specific representatives from specific teams. I would say that for me, the one that stands out the most is the New York Rangers in them selecting Igor Shesterkin over Artemi Panarin.
Yeah, I really don't get that. I mean, here is Panarin right now. He has 53 points. That places him tied for third in the entire league right now. Shesterkin, while he is a great goaltender, not exactly off to his typical start this year. I mean, Jonathan Quick has better statistics right now than Igor Shesterkin. So,
That is
a
true.
908 save percentage and a 275 goals against average, those are fairly pedestrian numbers.
Yeah, and while I do, I don't really blame them for picking Alex DeBrincat from Detroit. I think, from a publicity and, star perspective from that team, it makes sense. But also, like, I just Alex Lyon, man, like, what a story,
Yeah,
Like, and I know it sounds weird to say I'd rather have Alex Lyon at the All-Star game than Igor Shesterkin, but I almost would,
yeah,
because if this is a
almost.
frivolous event, where you want to have a lot of fun, like, could you imagine a guy like that at an All-Star game? Like, it's going to be like the greatest weekend of their life, and they would have the best time and be such a good story.
Oh yeah. I mean, and you always have to sort of judge that. I think the biggest issue with Lyon is just it's still a small sample size. He's only played 11 games, but yeah, he has
I
been
know.
something special. And yeah, I mean, you're always sort of balancing the popularity of a player, the position they play. You need somebody from every team. There are so many, for lack of a nicer word, political considerations that go into selecting this lineup. But yeah, I mean, there are some definite outliers, but I think overall this is a solid group.
Yeah, any other, like, big snubs, do you think? Or, like, maybe different selections you would have made?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the New York Islanders, I mean, Matthew Barzal is certainly deserving in a lot of ways, but you know, he wouldn't have been my first choice for the Islanders. And this is a team that I cover every day, but Noah Dobson has just been off the charts impressive for the Islanders this year. He has
Yeah.
38 points in 38 games. He's also, amazingly enough, he's quarterbacking the power play, but he's also leading the team in blocked shots, which is not something you would expect coming into this season for Noah Dobson. His defensive play has improved. He definitely deserves to go. But they went with Matthew Barzal, which I was a little bit surprised with. Third All-Star selection for Barzy.
Yeah, I think so. I do think they kind of just default to the captain sometimes for a lot of
Sometimes.
these selections. And I think one of those selections was inevitable, but also was it completely deserved? And that's for the host Toronto Maple Leafs. We
Yeah.
are going to get into that one and the voting and all of that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get 150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's 150 bucks in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same game parlays. You could find bets in their new Explore tab, or you could check out the Parlay Hub. It's the best place to find popular parlays, and there's a lot more. And look, you've got the NFL, you got college football's championship game coming up, you have pro and college basketball, and yeah, you could use your hockey knowledge on FanDuel as well. So check out all the latest odds on the app. Visit fanduel.com/locked-on and make your first bet a layup. That's fanduel.com/locked-on. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Continuing our conversation about the NHL All Star Game. Yeah, so the Toronto Maple Leafs, obviously they're the host, right? And so having the host team's captain on the team seems pretty essential. There is an argument to be made, though, for William Nylander
Oh,
as
yeah.
the Leafs representative here, and the fact that it would be almost a guarantee that Austin Matthews would get in on the fan vote.
Right. Whereas Nylander is a little less likely to get in on the fan vote. But I mean, he's leading the team in points. He's got, 19 goals, 32 assists already. He belongs in this game without question.
Yeah. So I wonder if Toronto Leafs Nation is going to rise up and get Nylander on the roster for that. You would think there'd have to be at least 2 Toronto Maple Leafs on that list, given that they're hosting.
Yeah, you would have to, based on two things: the fact that they're hosting, number one, and the fact that they do have so many star players, number two.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking at the rest of what's going on with the All-Star weekend here. So we have our 32 players now. We talked about some of them are going to swap out because of guys dropping out and injuries and all of that. But there are 12 more players to be selected in a fan vote, and that will be 10 skaters and 2 goaltenders. Because we will end up with 44 players that'll be split into 4 teams, 9 skaters, and 2 goalies. Again, we are a little light on defensemen, but with the fan vote, will they pick defensemen, and are they going to say, okay, the top vote getter, like X number of vote getters of forwards, the top X number of vote getters with defensemen, just to make sure we have enough, right? Because I think we need at least 2 defensemen per team here,
You would
right?
think. You would think. And, they also could add more defensemen in the injury
That's
replacement
true.
method. And I think that's one of the ways they're going to make sure that there are enough defensemen in this game. And nobody plays defense anyway. I mean, there are almost never grinders or,
Also
you know,
true.
checking forwards. The only checks involved are the ones the players cash after the game. So, you know, yeah, they should add some more defensemen, and there are deserving defensemen out there who have not been named to the team. And I mentioned Noah Dobson is one of them. So hopefully they will rectify that to some extent. But you get the feeling with the votes that it's not going to be that way.
Josh Morrissey is maybe a sleeper on the defensive side to go in. Vince Dunn has had
Yeah,
a tremendous season.
I mean, no Cale
So,
Makar. How could you not have Cale
yeah,
Makar on this list?
yeah,
I mean, he's second in the league among points among defensemen, just one behind Quinn Hughes. But of course, Nathan McKinnon has to make it.
right.
It's really frustrating sometimes because they're just clearly not picking just the best 44 players. And I would like to see them extend the rosters a little bit so some of these very deserving players have a chance to participate in the games.
Yeah, and, obviously, I don't know the personalities of all of these players, but it's the All-Star game. I want personality. And that's
Yeah.
why I want Matthew Tkachuk in this game. He's not having a great season, but you need him there, right?
Yeah. He's fun. He's definitely fun.
Yeah. So the other aspect of all of this is the draft, which we've talked about on a previous episode of the show. They're bringing that back. So we don't have captains yet for these 4 teams, but they're going to get paired up with celebrities who will then have the draft on the Thursday, February 1st, before the festivities get going and the actual skills comp and all of that. I think that the draft should be fun. Again, this is where we could maybe get Connor Bedard and Connor McDavid together
Yep.
somehow. You want the whole uh, book trope of enemies to lovers coming together of like guys that normally like get at
Player
it.
meets player, player fights
Yeah,
with player, player gets player back.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like unlikely bedfellows trope there. So I love all that stuff. But that's what the draft does, right? That it gives you the opportunity for fun stuff like that.
Yeah, it definitely can be fun, and certainly it makes for a lot of social media fodder where people will be, posting about their likes and dislikes. I totally get it. The thing I don't like about it, though, and I'd be interested in hearing your opinion. If there's more than one player from my favorite team, they could be playing against each other.
Love
In
it.
I
Love
don't
it.
like that. I want to
Oh
root for my
no.
guys, and I can't root for both of them.
No, you can root for both of them. That's the thing. Is
Not if they're playing
like
each other.
I just think that part of it is fun because I've seen that before, and it's
I've seen it
honestly
too. Yeah.
it's a real good time. I enjoy that. Just like rip it up and start over, and it's just you have these fun little moments between them, especially when they go up against each other in a skills competition event.
Well,
Oh,
that's
because
different.
that's
That's a
for
little more fun.
pride.
Yeah,
That's for
absolutely.
pride. Love that.
Absolutely. But, if I'm an Islanders fan and there are two Islanders in this tournament and they're playing in a game against each other, who am I rooting for? The players themselves? Which team do I pull for? That gets a little, again, I guess you can't take this entire thing all that seriously when it comes to winning and losing.
Yeah, I think that it's it should be interesting to see. Is there any like skaters or goalies you think are locks on the fan ballot to get in?
I mean, I would assume Leon Draisaitl will be voted in by the fans, and I think Kel McCarr will probably be voted in by the fans. Those are the two names that really jump out to me. I wonder about Jeremy Swayman. I think he probably deserved to be on this team. How about you? Anybody that stands out for you?
Uh, JT Miller,
Yep.
I want to say. Yeah, definitely Drysaitel. We've talked about him. I wonder if like all of the top guys in Toronto eventually get in. Like, is Marner gonna get in?
Right.
Um, and I would say like Brock Besser, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know he's not having as good a season this year as last year, but really was he gonna? Jason Robertson, I enjoy him
Yep.
tremendously. I think there's a lot of good options
And
here
then
as well.
what about some veteran guys like Anjay Kopitar or Joe Pavelski?
Or like,
Guys.
will Tavares get in as one of
Right.
the Leafs?
Right. I mean, yeah, I
Will
don't think
Brad
he belongs
Marchand?
there,
You
but
know?
yeah, 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 yeah.
So Brad Marchand, I think, is a possibility to get in. Um,
Toronto fans will love that.
yeah, yeah. um, maybe Malkin. I don't
Yep.
know. Um, I think will Detroit vote Dylan Larkin in? It's
Will Alexander Ovechkin get voted in because he
I
wasn't
don't know.
he's not doing well, but he's Alexander Ovechkin. Uh, fans will probably vote him in.
Yeah, it is very possible, but I'm looking forward to seeing who everybody votes in here. And I think that one of the other fun things that some of the teams did was how they announced it to their
Yes.
selectee in this. There were two very opposite but also very cool videos that got put out there. Tom Wilson's selection was told to him by his dad in a video. I think that was rather heartwarming, and I use the word heartwarming and Tom Wilson in the same sentence very reluctantly, I gotta say.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Uh, but no, it was very cute there. And then the exact opposite, man, the Oliver Bjorkstrand video for Seattle. Did you see that one?
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun.
Yeah, like the fact that he said, "Oh, I'm planning on going vacation to San Diego," and then Dave Hacksaw's like, "You're going to the All Star game," and just the look on his face is like, "Oh no, I gotta like I'm not gonna get this beach vacation that I've been looking forward to for weeks now."
Cancel the reservations,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so looking forward to seeing who gets selected in the fan vote and how the rosters pan out. You can vote NHL.com/vote up until midnight Thursday of next week. And then we'll see who the captains are, and looking forward to the draft as well. In the meantime, we've got a large swath of games coming up this weekend. Uh, leading up to it. And we will talk about those games coming up next. You know that feeling when your favorite NHL player scores a hat trick? If you want to get that feeling and win 100 times your money, play daily fantasy hockey on the Sleeper app. As the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network, Sleeper is our top choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. You can also play daily fantasy NFL, NBA, MLB, and college football on Sleeper, and entries can be made in under a minute. NHL's got elite players like Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, and Austin Matthews, plus new guys like Connor Bedard. All you need to do is make more or less picks on stats for these stars. You choose from stats like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more. To win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail those picks so you can start winning big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with all the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league, including this one. Go to Locked On Sports Today over on YouTube to subscribe. We have a traditional weekend
Yes.
of NHL hockey with only a few games tonight to look forward to. I would say the Carolina Hurricanes versus the Washington Capitals is top of my list.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, these teams are only separated by 4 points in the standings right now. 4 points in the Metropolitan separates second place from seventh place. So that's a dogfight. Capitals are at home, and let's see if they can, use that home ice advantage to earn a win. I just get the feeling this game is either going to overtime or a shootout.
Yeah, I definitely could see that happening. The later game is Winnipeg at Anaheim, and man, Winnipeg Jets are fun. I enjoy them, and this should be a good matchup as well.
Yeah, no, I like watching their brand of hockey. They are sort of overlooked a little bit, but they certainly deserve a lot more attention from the national media.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we've got our huge slate of games on Saturday to look forward to. Right away in the afternoon, we have the Florida Panthers against the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, I love this matchup. And, Florida traveling to the Mile High City, two really good teams with almost identical records. I mean, who do you think comes out ahead in this one?
I don't know. This is tough because Florida's been playing pretty well. But man, I think I'm going to give the edge to Colorado on
Okay.
this
Me too.
one here. Yeah, yeah. The other one that's going to be a tough battle is the Tampa Bay Lightning going up to the Garden in Boston, and it just feels like every game between these two teams is a grudge match.
It is, and I love it. It's interesting though because the Tampa Bay Lightning, they are still an extremely talented team, but now they're a lot more inconsistent. So there are some nights where they look like the team that won, multiple Stanley Cups and went to 3 straight Stanley Cup final, and then there are some nights where you're like, "What's wrong? What's going on with these guys?" Always tough to win in Boston, but this should be a great one. These two teams don't like each other.
That is absolutely correct. Another game later in the day that is intriguing to me is the Canucks at the Devils. Obviously, because we have the Hughes connection happening there, but also should be a really good matchup here. Canucks obviously are having a tremendous season, and the Devils are just like I feel like it's, a step forward, 2 steps back, like, with them, and, now is the time for them to, like, establish whether or not they're a contending team.
Yeah, and goaltending has been a big issue for the Devils. We'll see if they can get that straightened out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then, later, we've got the Preds, in Dallas. I think that'll be a fun, divisional matchup as well.
I like this matchup. It's in Dallas. Nashville, they have been pleasantly surprising a lot of people all season. I think they are going to be in the playoff fight, maybe even make it this year. I like what I've seen from this team in the first year of the Barry Trotz as GM era.
Yeah, I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I did pick them as my sleeper
You
pick
did.
of the season. So, I am resting on those laurels for the time being. The late game, your New York Islanders in Vegas.
Yeah, and Vegas is struggling lately. They have won 3 of their last 10, and they lost again last night on Thursday to the Florida Panthers. The Islanders still inconsistent. I mean, 20 losses, but 10 of them have been in overtime or a shootout. And with the Islanders, you don't know what you're getting period to period or even shift to shift, let alone game to game. If they rise to the occasion, they could easily go with Vegas toe to toe. If they don't play their game, this could be a blowout win for the Golden Knights.
Yeah, yeah, I think it should be a really interesting game to watch just to kind of see where Vegas is at right now, and see if the Islanders are real and, which I think they are, but I
I
think
think
this is
so
a
too.
good game.
Veteran team.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then Sunday, there are 4 games. Calgary will be in Chicago to start the day in the afternoon.
Yeah, Connor Bedard going up against the Calgary Flames. And, the Blackhawks, I love watching Bedard, but the team still has a long way to go.
That is absolutely true, and yeah, this is just a day of some weird matchups, I think, Kings at Capitals, like, it's just a matchup you don't really think about. Obviously, it's cross conference, but
Right.
I do think that, the Kings are more of a team of the future, and the Washington Capitals are more a team of the past, and, but, I think it'll be some good hockey regardless.
Time machine game, huh?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and then we've got Jets in Arizona and Detroit in Anaheim to wrap up the weekend. And that is a good way to wrap up the show for today. Thanks so much for listening. Gil, you will be back on Monday talking with hosts from around the network to see what's going on with some individual teams making waves around the league. Have a great weekend, everybody.